Good morning. It is Tuesday, April 11th, and had some interesting stuff happen this morning. I was a bit confused when I walked out at 5:30 in the dark, but yeah, some of the tree stumps and all of that is starting to come back out. And it's a beautiful sunrise with some interesting clouds over Telemark. Even overnight, looks like we lost another inch or two just a melt. It was like 46 degrees this morning. Not quite sure what's going on over here, but something with the water, that's for sure. So there's definitely more scenes like this where there's just a fair bit of standing water, and then yeah, just you gotta hope that you have that downslope in your driveway so you're not gonna have that coming into the garage. And then I think there's more at the end of this street as well. So if you remember the roof that I showed maybe a week ago that had the leak inside the garage, it's come down quite a bit in terms of snowpack on top. And just for clarification, the landlord did pay for someone to come out and clear off the section that was actually just on the other side of this eave that had the ice dam and water sitting behind it. So it is no longer leaking into the garage. So we almost have our hose back, which will be nice to be able to wash the dogs off or wash the bikes off when we start riding the bikes again. So excited for that. Lots of melting has happened today. I mean, look at that. We were at 19, I think, this morning, and now it looks like we're down to 16 to 15. Crazy. Okay, so I've had a few comments and questions regarding Telemark skiing, and so I was just going to kind of show you my current, I have a third setup, but at least I'll show you my two main setups that I use. This being the first and foremost that I use most commonly, but unfortunately it is dealing with some small little pop rivets that did break loose, so I do have them, sending them out, and should be here by Friday. And here's a little bit older model of binding on the Telemark ski. Okay, so here's my first setup, and this one is the one that's a little bit older. This is the Axle 22 from 22 Designs, and you know, the background of Telemark skiing is that in the Telemark region of Norway, is my understanding, that this type of skiing was started, and it was mainly used to get from point A to point B. And the idea is that because your heel is free, it allows you to hike up and then also ski back down. In those days, they were using more fish scale skis and different, you know, types of bindings. There are 3-pin leather boots. Nowadays, we have some higher end gear with plastic boots, but there's still some differences where we have a duck bill on the front of this boot, and then also a little bit of an extra flex in the toe that a normal alpine boot would not have. So this then, in the duck bill, will go into the front of the binding. The back of the cable and spring binding will pull in, and then there's a little divot in the back of the boot that then allows this to be solid as you're skiing. And this then, as you back heel comes up, you have resistance and stability, and there's very little side-to-side play with that, so it does work quite well. So here's a little bit of a different angle on that duck bill in the front, and then you can kind of see here's the back divot where this cable spring binding comes and attaches into. And so you can kind of see a little bit better of how that particular binding works on this setup. Okay, so on the second setup here, this is basically considered what they call an NTN setup, or the new Telemark norm. You'll notice there is really no duck bill anymore. It's tiny, but nothing like the previous boot. It still has that little bit of a flex in the toe, and the binding, as I'll show up a close-up in a moment, is a bit different. Basically, there is a back end of the boot here in the bottom middle that will attach to the other part of the binding. So it's basically a step-in binding, and then you're good to go, which is a big benefit versus on the other one you kind of had to pull it behind you to get locked into that position. So I'll show you a close-up of that in just a moment. Okay, so here's one of the bindings with the boot knot in it, so you can kind of see what it looks like compared to the other one. And then you'll kind of see in the back of the boot, so that's what, when you push down, that's what needs to clip in. And so there, now you can see you're clipped in. And the reality is that this setup gives you a lot of extra stability. There is more resistance and more stability as you start to bend the back heel up when you're in your telemark position. So hope you guys enjoyed this little segment, and I'll do little bits and pieces like this in the future as well. Getting in her telly dance in the fresh pow.
I know. Dan.
So here in these couple clips, it should give you a better idea of kind of what the telly stance is, what the telly turn is like, and I'm going to do a much more in-depth video about telemark skiing sometime in the future involving friends and family who do that as well, and we'll dive into that a bit more, but hopefully that helps the understanding there a little bit. And here we'll close it out with some time lapses.